Wow, Taliesin, here we are, the Burning of Teldrassil scenario. Are you ready?
Oh, am I ever. Right, first things first, Khadgar, go and tank that trash pack, keep him out of our way. This tree isn't burning on my watch.
Knowledge is power.
Wow, this is so exciting! So many questions are about to get answered. Like, who really burns down the big tree? Will Malfurion survive? Who starts the war?
Taliesin, is that mob heading towards us?
What? No, it can't be. Khadgar's tanking them, and he's an awesome tank. Ask anyone. Hey, what do you think's really going on with Varisa? Do you think there'll be a really cool cinematic at the end of the scenario?
Taliesin, they're definitely coming this way. I think we have aggro.
No, that's impossible. Khadgar, taunt! Taunt!
It's not working.
I don't understand. Oh, wait, now I think about it. I did read something somewhere about a threat reduction for tanks on the alpha. Maybe it's that.
Well, whatever it is, I'm not taking on a whole pack of mobs by myself. I didn't even bring a weapon because you told me that Khadgar is such a good tank. I'm aborting the mission.
What? No, you can't abort the mission. What about the tree? You know what? I've never really liked Darnassus anyway.
And me neither. It's too high up.
It's too high up, yeah. I think a small fire would probably do it good. Okay, let's go.
There is much to be done.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the weekly reset. First of all, I'd like to apologise for the lack of an episode last week. I mean, I'd like to apologise, but we don't have time to apologise because honestly, there's just so much to get through. You'll just have to imagine the apology because we need to get started. This week, we're going to cover comics, cutscenes, novels, the great threat reduction debate, and of course, take a peek at the coolest new models and stuff from the beta because things are getting serious now, guys. The PTR is going to be here in a matter of weeks, and we're told that on that PTR, among other things like all those juicy class changes and global cooldown changes, are going to be the two intro scenarios that will form most of the Battle for Azeroth pre-patch event. The Battle for Lordaeron and the Burning of Teldrassil. Now, of course, the Battle for Lordaeron we know all about. Horde, Alliance, Azerite War Machine, fight with Saurfang, it's great. But so far, we've seen nothing of the Burning of Teldrassil beyond some data mine dialogue text, which, to be honest, doesn't really tell us all much of anything. And this is a scenario that we all really want to know about, because whatever it is that goes down there, it ends with Teldrassil going all Goku, and the question on everyone's lips is, who starts that fire? And you know, I get the feeling that the reason we haven't seen this event on the beta sooner is because Blizzard are specifically keeping that rather vital tidbit of information from us, because I get the feeling that whatever the answer is, it's an ace up there, two sides to the story, morally grey narrative sleeve. A belief that was only strengthened when the scenario went up on the beta this week and then was promptly taken down with hardly anyone getting a chance to actually play it. I don't know if Blizzard are ready to show us this yet, so should we take a look at it anyway? Yeah, I think we're going to take a look at it anyway. And no, obviously we didn't get a chance to actually play the scenario ourselves before it was taken down because, you know, the Mage Tower was up. And since the Mage Tower is only going to be up another like 3 times before all those lovely juicy appearances are gone forever, well, I'm sorry everyone, but Mage Tower has priority, okay? And anyway, luckily we do know lots of people who did play through it, so all the footage we're going to show you from this is courtesy of our friend Noon182, who honestly I think is always first to any of this stuff. There's a link to his channel down below. This is the Alliance side of the story, and do you remember when we looked at the Alliance side of the Battle for Lordaeron, which jumped feet first into a massively hectic battle scene with a ton of other players and what felt like hundreds of NPCs? Yeah, it's not quite as good as that. If Battle for Lordaeron reminded me in scale and feel of the Broken Shore scenario, which kickstarted Legion, this felt a lot more like the pre-patch event for Warlords of Draenor, where you defend Nethergard Keep against the newly arrived Iron Horde in a much more open plan series of missions, which are inevitably just a little less exciting because of the form they take. But there's still good stuff here. You turn up in Darkshore to be told that the Horde have attacked, and we're really going to need someone to do something about that, and since you're here, it may as well be you. And actually, this first bit is pretty fun. There's Forsaken rogues everywhere, and loads of wisps flying around, and it feels cool. Then we fly off to meet up with Malfurion, whose entangling roots game is on point. Look at this. I mean, fair play, Malfi. I haven't always been your biggest fan, but that's a lot of entangling roots. GG. Malfurion is where my money is for the fire starter, just for the record. Anyway, he can't stick around because he's got a date with Sylvanas. So we join the defense force, blast some guys with a Fey Dragon, convince some druids of the Claw to help out. Then suddenly all the Furbolgs hate us and we have to fight them as well. And you know what that means, don't you? Furbolgs Horde Alliance race confirmed, boys, because that's how we think now. Then it turns out that Darkshore is an Azerite hotspot. Like, seriously, it's everywhere and you're like, I'll be having that? And then finally, this starts to feel like a proper battle as the Horde start to press into the area with renewed force. There's explosions and spell effects and treants throwing rocks and bodies everywhere, and then you hitch a ride with the Tree of Life, who honestly is like the opposite of what its name suggests because it kills loads of Hordes, and that's actually it. The story finishes with the Alliance ships rolling in as backup, Malfurion congratulating us on a job well done, and Teldrassil suspiciously flame-free. Basically what I'm saying is, it turns out that this is only part 1, and the stuff we're all waiting for isn't in there yet. So all of those questions that we have about the tree and the burning of the tree and who burns the tree will have to remain unanswered for now, and actually I'm pretty pleased about that, because it's nice to have a week go by without throwing any major spoilers at you, you know? What is interesting about this though is that the ending of the quest line doesn't suggest that you're about to start part 2 straight away, there and then. It feels like there's going to be a little wait in between this and the really interesting stuff up on Darnassus itself. We know that there are going to be other repeatable quests in this area for you to do while you wait for that second part, but what would be really interesting is No, that's stupid. Well, what I was going to ask is, could it be possible that we've all read this sequence of events wrong? That we do Teldrassil Part 1, then the Battle for Lordaeron, and then the World Tree is burned down. Forget I even said it, they wouldn't do that. Now, I refuse to give any kind of judgment on a scenario which Blizzard put up and then saw fit to take down again straight away, but I can't help wishing that there was something in the BfA pre-patch which is more like those awesome demon invasion points that Legion had. Because seriously, those are great. 40 or 50 players flying all over the old world map, taking out massive demons was super fun, and somehow managed to stay super fun for weeks. And I know, Battle for Azeroth isn't about us all uniting against a common foe, not yet. So I get it doesn't really fit. I just really liked them is all. They were great. Maybe just give us a little one, Blizz.
Literature news, I know, right? And it's been an unusually busy week in the written word of Warcraft, because not only have Blizzard released the first 2 in a series of planned BfA prequel comics since our last episode, but we've also had an exclusive extract from the new Before the Storm novel to pour over too. The novel extract takes the form of a letter that Anduin writes to Sylvanas, putting forward the idea of a peaceful meeting between Forsaken and human family members in the fields outside Stromgarde. And don't worry, we're not about to go giving you any novel spoilers here, we've done that already in another video, but there is a rather illuminating phrase in this letter, which WoW had decided to present on this rather flashy tea-stained scroll graphic, which is a really nice touch, except I think we all know that Anduin isn't a dusty parchment kind of guy, don't we? I think we all know that if Anduin is going to send Sylvanas a personal message, he's probably going to write it on the side of a beautiful kitten, or on a packet of vegan souffle, or just inbox her on Tinder. Let's be honest, it's probably Tinder, so that's how we're going to present it. But the sentence I wanted to point out in this letter is the one that says, "We are not currently at war." When this letter is written, the Horde and Alliance are at their usual level of antagonism, but are not officially at war. And it's in this state of non-war that Sylvanas orders the attack on Teldrassil that Taliesin was just talking about, which makes Sylvanas' actions seem even more bizarrely aggressive. Sorry. Morally grey. I meant morally grey. You know what I think? I think Sylvanas needs a short comic to explore her motivations a bit more, just like Jaina and Magni have had in the last couple of weeks. These comics were one of my favourite things in the build-up to Legion, with the Son of the Wolf being the most obvious and enduring example, with that famous last frame of old Manduin preparing for the final battle against the Shadow on the Exodar. So far there's been nothing as explosive as this image in the 2 BfA comics, but they're still really interesting in their own right. Oh, except seriously, Blizz, did you really think we wouldn't notice that these comics don't move? The last series had all animated versions with music and sound effects and were basically the best thing that ever happened, and these new ones, well, they're just comics. Do you expect me to do my own sound effects, Blizz? Is that what you want? Because I will, and they'll be brilliant. Reunion gives the lowdown on what Jaina has been up to throughout Legion. While we were killing demons, turns out she's been killing demons too, just by herself and more emo. We get what might be my new favorite picture of Garrosh Hellscream ever drawn, and then she disguises herself and heads home to Borealis for our first official look at the cool Tiras capital. We officially encounter lots of characters here for the first time too, who will all be important in the next expansion. Admiral Copeland, who is urging contact with the Alliance, Lady Ashvane, who is more isolationist, with the kind of smirk that suggests she may just have ulterior motives for her position. Mention of the mysteriously missing Waycrest family, and of course, the indomitable Catherine Proudmoore, Jaina's mom. Do you know, I think that's the first time I've ever actually said the word indomitable out loud in real life, and how I've used it twice, but I really think Catherine is worth it. I mean, look at her. She's awesome. And if I don't see at least 10 badass Catherine Proudmoore cosplays at BlizzCon this year, then I'm gonna ask for a refund. She's indomitable. The comic ends with Jaina swearing to protect the continent in the upcoming war, even though they all hate her because she essentially killed her dad, and my seascape sound effects that I made while reading it were amazing. They were. You'll just have to trust me. Next up is the speaker, in which our favorite King of Diamonds, Magni Bronzebeard, is despairing about how his messages from Azeroth's world soul have dried up since the whole sword being stabbed into the world incident. Now, all he hears are her screams. He touches some Azerite and gets messages in the form of flashbacks from his own life and family, snippets of past conversations with his late wife Eamar, his daughter Mora, his brother Muradin, and some random patrol dwarf. The speaker is quite a beautiful little story in its own little way, showing Magni and us that Azeroth is a life, a soul, who we need to help her find who she's meant to be. But everything's changed, and she's dying. Help her, or else you'll lose her. Oh, sorry, or else you'll lose her. And just like the Jaina comic, this ends with the central character promising to stay with someone who needs their help. In this case, Azeroth herself. Jaina plunges her sword into the ground as she makes her promise. Magni doesn't really need to do that at this stage. It's not really necessary. So who can we expect to see in the next installment? Well, obviously, we don't know, because it's not like we know anyone at Blizzard or anything, but if I had to guess, I would imagine that it might well be another story which revolves around the themes of family and loss, like we've just seen with Jaina and Magni. So, I don't know if you can think of another famous family in WoW with a famous last name, but that would be my guess. And I'd guess that it would be revealed on Monday and have an especially good cover, but again, that's a total guess, so you probably shouldn't pay it too much attention. Which all leaves us with not much time at all to cover these new models from the beta that we promised you. Well, first and foremost, let's all sit back and spend a moment appreciating the glory of the alpaca. And yes, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that is a model I never thought I needed in the game, but now I see it, I realize I've needed it every day of my life up until now. And the other thing you're thinking is, alpaca allied race confirmed, boys! Because that's just how we think now. We also have some new transmog items that can be picked up in island expeditions, including Vrykul-themed helms, Vrykul allied race confirmed, okay, never mind, and the Kobold candle hat, which is sure to prompt hilarious you-know-take candle bants in your raid that will stay hilarious right through the expansion. This is all cool, but not as cool as the new victory screen for island expeditions. I love this a bit too much, to be honest. Mostly because of how proud all our characters are of their ridiculous Heart of Azeroth neck pieces. Look how happy they are, Blizz! Imagine if you made that neck piece visible in our characters all the time. They'd be that happy all the time. Why don't you want us to be happy all the time, Blizz? Oh, and a special mention too for the newly implemented animated Heart of Azeroth trait interface, because it's just fun and great, and I love it already. No wonder they look so happy.
Which brings us to the final story of the day, and I hope you're sitting down, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, because I wish to welcome you to the Great Threat Reduction Debate. Oh good. It was revealed this week that Blizzard have made a drastic change to the amount of threat that tanking abilities generate against mobs. And to quickly explain this, obviously a mob decides who to attack by who is generating the most threat against it, which at its most basic is calculated by who is doing the most DPS to it. Now obviously tanks don't do as much damage as DPS classes, so to make it possible for them to hold aggro in dungeons and raids, they have taunt abilities obviously, but on top of that, damage they do generates considerably more threat than equivalent damage from other classes. In Legion at the moment, that baseline is 10 times more threat that tanks generate with their abilities, and at the moment in beta, that number is nearer 4 times more, which on the face of it is a massive nerf to tank threat. But that's hardly new to the WoW community, is it? Especially not on the forums, where I've always read nostalgic posts from older players who tell me about how much better and more interesting the game was in vanilla or BC, when tank threat was much lower than even this, and how the game was much more engaging and enjoyable as a result. And sure enough, when I visited those same forums after hearing this news, they were buzzing with excitement about how much this change would improve the gameplay experience, begging those older players to tell them the story about needing 3 stacks of Sunder on a boss before the DPS could even touch it, and all enjoying a refreshing air of optimism. And no, it was a shit show, obviously. No, God, please, no! This is as stupid as it gets! Leave this kind of crap to the classic server! You are freaking scaring me! At this point, I'm just gonna grab a bag of popcorn and have BfA pop it for me as it goes down in flames! There's gonna be less pew pew and more QQ with this change. I included that last comment just because even in the eye of a shitshow storm, I can still appreciate a good pun. Well played. So what's actually going on here? Are we looking at vanilla levels of threat management? Are new or inexperienced tanks going to be hounded out of dungeon groups because they don't have the solid threat management skills the game now demands of them? Is LFR going to be a torturous hellscape strewn with the corpses of over-enthusiastic DPS? I mean, more so. Well, and I really am sorry to spoil everyone's fun here, but no, none of that is going to happen. To start with, I say that this change was revealed this week because it was, by Wowhead, but the change has been in the beta for much longer than that, and the thing is, no one really noticed it, which probably should be your first clue that this isn't going to be a problem. In fact, so unnoticeable is it that I tanked a BfA dungeon for the first time this week just before this news came out. I tanked it live, on stream, chatting to 2 other people, Evitel and Panzer, on a spec that I hadn't even touched on the beta until that moment, and of course with no add-ons. And even then, even with me only half paying attention because I was frankly too busy trying to make excellent puns for charity, I lost aggro on a couple of trash mobs in the first dungeon, thought, I lost aggro for a second there, I should probably pay more attention, and then kept aggro as normal in all the dungeons after that. That's just my subjective experience of it, but I can also give a more objective view too. Those headlines you're reading, like, this will be just like when Cataclysm first launched, this will be permanent skittish, they're not true. Sorry. For one, Cataclysm threat was considerably lower than this. Wrath was lower than this. The beta levels are more comparable to Mists of Pandaria than anything else. And I don't know about you, but when I think of Mists of Pandaria, tank aggro and how difficult it was isn't what I think of. I'm mostly thinking about how much I loved Mists and how surely it's about time Jinyu were an allied race. Surely. Because that's just how we think now. And it's not going to be like skittish either, because during skittish, tanks generate just 2.5 times more threat, which I promise you is a lot less than the 4 times more than they do on beta. And I know that's not as fun as making out that this is a big deal, but for the vast majority of players, it's really not going to even be a thing beyond maybe once or twice a dungeon saying, whoops, back you come little fella, and hitting taunt for like the 2nd time in your entire life. Because yes, 10 down to 4 sounds like a big reduction, but if you only need 3 in the first place, then practically it's not a reduction at all because you've still got more than you need. This is going to impact high-end Mythic Plus players, and it's here to combat the pull everything, kite it, AoE it down tactic that is prevalent at that level of play. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, problem will be a few weeks into BfA when you get the uber-geared Mythic Raiders with maxed out Azerite armor and dump them into a dungeon with a new dinged tanking greens. Which sounds like a very good point, except what dungeons would you run with a newly dinged tanking greens if you are that maxed out Mythic Raider? If that's the scenario that's worrying to you, then honestly, you worry too much. My advice is never watch the news because you'll shit yourself. Okay, you can watch this news. This news is safe. Right, now we're not going to talk too much in this end bit at the end here this week.
Yeah.
Even though this is the talky bit at the end, not enough time because we want to show you all of the entries, the winners to our caption competition that we launched a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that was ages ago.
It was capturing the picture of Anduin and Saurfang, and you could win a beta key.
Yeah.
And 60 winners, and we got a lot of entries, Evitel.
We did, we got more than 60.
We got probably too many,
Yeah.
and next time, because we might do another beta key competition in the future, who knows, not as many entries, please.
Yeah, next time maybe just don't take part.
Days passed with me staring at the screen, like rings under the eyes. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't
No.
cry. All I was doing was laughing.
Yeah.
Laughing at amazing caption.
Who would do that
And
to
sometimes
someone?
I'd have to reach up for the mouse because I'd be on the floor, like rolling around with laughter though. And it was just very difficult. So just please bear that in mind. We're going to show you a selection, a little smattering of the winners. Not all of them. So
Just a
if
few.
yours isn't there, please don't be offended. It's probably going to be a random selection. So we'll leave you with that. But thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to help these shows happen. Without them, there'd be no weekly reset.
Or anything at all.
There'd be none
really.
of anything at all. There would be the sun and the moon and the
Well,
stars.
maybe.
But they wouldn't be as good. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Archvaldor. No, my name is Taliesin. For me,
And me, Evitel.
we've got to rehearse this. It's like we. It's
I do
almost
it wrong
like
every time.
It's almost like we. Or is it me that's doing it wrong every time?
I don't know.
Maybe we need to have a little conversation about
Could
what
be.
is actually right about this.
Who knows?
Nothing is right about this. Cheerio.
Bye.